All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome and thank you very much for taking the time on a very cool Alexandra and Acheron evening. I'll begin by recognising that we meet on the land of the Taungurung people, the traditional owners of the place we now call Murrindindi, and I pay my respects to the elders past and present who are the keepers of history, knowledge and culture of this land. And I extend that respect to everybody here because I know that there is a keen respect for the beautiful place that we call the Acheron Valley. This evening, we've come back to give you a bit of an update. So since we last met, Council in November awarded a contract for the construction of the Breakaway Bridge. There's a bit of a shortfall between what's required and what's on the table in terms of funding. But I want to make it really clear, and this to sort of talk to some of the decision making that went behind in Council's thinking, and that is the shortfall that exists over the 10 years of the first 10 years of operation. It'll be actually a better option to go with the option that the council's chosen, because the option that's on the table talks about delivery of a particular outcome, but then a significant operational burden year on year that we will take forever. So after about 10 years, the option that you'll see described today and which we've discussed in the past is, I think, a really sound one. The idea of tonight is to provide that bit of an update about where we are, but also to get your perspectives on the aspects of the project which are within your control. So there are certain things that where we'll be able to seek your advice about how we can best implement this project and achieve the very best outcome for the community. So without further ado, I'm going to sit back as a community member, very interested and keen on the progress of this project. And I'm going to hand over to Andrew Paxson, who's the Director of Community and Development, who'll guide a team of professionals through the project and where we're at. So thanks, Andrew.
Thank you very much, Mayor Gallagher. I've got Peter Bain with us today, who's our manager, who's coordinating the capital works and the recovery from the flood to help answer questions. We've got Kim Chadban from Council, who's the manager of flood recovery from the 22, 23 and 24 floods. So she's been a little bit busy in that space. And Donna is also here helping tonight with the registrations, who just chases everything down to find solutions for us. So thank you very much. You're on the screen, just an outline of what we want to go through tonight. The first thing, a bit of a history, just to get us all on the same page where we're at, what the Disaster Recovery Funding Agreement is, and remember some of the conversations we had earlier, a technical assessment where we're at, the bridge project status, what the next steps, and then some of the questions we think that are still out there that we want to work through and what that looks like, and then an open conversation for feedback. So this is a parish plan that shows you how far it goes back when they used to draw them by hand. So it's a part of a gazetted government road. 1989, it was transferred to council from the state. It's been exposed to multiple flood events over time. In 4 spans, it was built in 1921, and then in 32 extended to 5 spans with steel supports added in 2003. So it's been constantly changing with the floods. And it's called the Breakaway because it wasn't the original river as well. So that whole area just keeps changing. And we've got to say, how do we address that going forward? In the 2022 floods, it's described in the engineers' reports as catastrophically damaged. The timber substructures failed and all the steel supports, all of those are bent. So it is catastrophically damaged and needs to be replaced. The DRFA funding, so that's the Disaster Recovery Funding, that's a Commonwealth and state government arrangement. So it's like taking out insurance at home. So all the Victorian assets, the governments and all local government, all their critical assets or essential assets like roads and bridges are funded through that arrangement. Councils don't carry a separate insurance for that. It's all funded through that arrangement. The key thing with that arrangement is it rebuilds back like for like. So if we have a potholed road, they'll rebuild back a potholed road. If we have a single lane bridge, the functionality of the bridge is a single lane bridge, and that is what is built back under that funding agreement. That's where you would have seen in Yea, we rebuilt a road back. 3 months later, we had another flood event, and the same road section got washed away. All our advocacy you'll see constantly talks about the need to build back better, the need to build back more resilient infrastructure. It's nonsensical to keep building back the same and expecting a different outcome. In Queensland, the requirement of their funding agreement is they actually build back resilient infrastructure. So before they release the funds, they say it has to address the future needs and changing climate. In Victoria, the government doesn't fund it that way. It's like for like replacement. In that process, you would have seen very early on, we put some rocks on the banks. So there's some immediate stabilisation works. So that's like filling in the potholes. We do that as quick as we can and the bank stabilisation to make it safe. We'll come back and do the resheet of the road or fix it up permanently when we get through with the cost estimates and the final designs and we know the money's coming. Some councils have raced out after the floods and have built back some of their roads. They're out of pocket to millions of dollars. We're taking the prudent approach of when it's signed off by the state and we have a guarantee of the funding, we then act. We can't afford to go build everything back. A $30 million bill from the floods is simply not affordable, plus Breakaway Bridge. So therefore we try to recover the money or get agreement for it first before we rebuild, like you would at home. Same principles, you want to have your insurance agree to pay you before you do the rebuilding works. It is an incredible onerous process. We have to provide evidence that the bridge was there first, or the potholes, or the state of the road, with photos to show, and that we've inspected and maintained it. We then need evidence to show what damage has occurred to it. And we need to then also establish the timelines for rebuilding, and they can build in a cost escalation into that. So it's a fairly arduous process to demonstrate to the Victorian government, then through the Commonwealth, that we have a true idea of what was there and what needs to be rebuilt. And importantly, the funding's not transferable. So we can't take the money from here and build back something else. The money is tied to that asset for that purpose, if that makes sense. The replacement options we spoke about last time was a new bridge and also new bridge, not a repair, to build to contemporary standards with no load limit and resilient to flooding and increase the deck height. But we're looking at a 100-year lifespan, so it needs to actually something that will sustain a longer time. We don't want to come back every so often continually to fix it, as we have had to in the past. We went to tender, and you would have seen in the council report, with 4 options. Option 1 being a single lane bridge, inviting innovation, inviting the industry rather than saying we know best. What does the industry think is the best way? Might block in the screen. Yep. So asking the industry, what do you think we can do and what is your best thoughts on this? Let the industry help us for a single lane or a dual lane. And then we also gave them, this is what we think on a conventional approach, how we would go about doing the bridge, allowed the industry to come back and help respond in that space. You're doing these, Peter? So Peter's just going to go through some of the new bridge design elements.
Might move this over and down because.
Why down, Peter?
Sorry about that. It's genetics, Scott. So we'd like to fight close to the ground. Okay, so the design's 105 metres long, which is 45 metres longer than the old bridge. So that's a significant difference. And that brings into play a number of different factors that we have to have. Clearly, what we want to do also is make sure that it's all clear span as much as we can. So we asked for 30-metre spans. So they're instead of 10-metre spans, or 8 as it is at the moment. So most of the river will be clear of pylons. We've done a lot of surveys. You may have seen surveyors out and about. We did a re-establishment of all the property boundaries, which we'll share with you. A lot of the fences are in different places, but that doesn't mean anything. There's no need to change fence boundaries for this one. We've done all the geotechnical survey. The footings are going to go down 15 to 16 metres to the bottom of the alluvial silt that's down there. And we've done extensive environmental surveys as well, which will come to as to why we selected this particular design. So I should say that the DRFA funding, their first offer to us was, I can't remember, I think it was 350,000 to do some repairs on the work on the bridge. And that didn't even cover extending the old bridge. Then they went up to about $1 million. And eventually, after many years of advocacy, we've convinced them to at least fund a new bridge. So it's taken a huge amount of effort from council to get that done. The single lane means that we will need to have traffic signals on the line, which the engineers, our consultants and the contractors all think we'd be mad to even think about that. Just imagine the disruption when it comes holiday time and people want to cross the bridge on foot. They'll be pushing the button and stopping traffic all the time. So we really don't want that to happen. So at this stage, we've gone through all the design options, the construction costs, the impact of fuel cost rises, and we're at a stage now where we're presenting to the funding body, which is the Department of Transport, our value proposition that says, you're giving us this much, we would like to build this bridge with these additional features. And so tonight what we want to do is talk about some of the things that we can influence on the design as we move into the detailed design stage of the project. So the tender was awarded to Nelmac, which is Nelson McIntosh from Alexandra. I think quite a few of you know Nelson and his family company there. They certainly know how to build bridges in the same environment that we're facing here. They're well known around the Riverina down through the northeast. And we're looking forward to working with them. I think you'll find them very approachable and they'll provide all sorts of direct information to you as we go forward. So we've got to design what we call a 50% design, which means that we got it all working in terms of engineering requirements. And then there's some details to be done to do with the approaches, some other functional details, and we'll go forward. So that's working on this month and into up to July. The construction is scheduled for when the river's low, and the work in the river will be finished by the time spring flows come through, and then the bridge will be finished by Christmas. So, as Andrew said, we put out quite a wide-ranging tender where we're trying to elicit some innovation to take notice of the historical nature of the old bridge and the context, and we're pointing them towards some designs that New South Wales Main Roads and Maritime have, which are quite attractive looking. But unfortunately, we've got bog standard Victorian bridges, which unfortunately is the case. So this is the Nelmac Bridge, as it would look from the eastern side. So that's just the barriers, 30-metre pylons with a headstock on the top there. And our plan is that we'll have down the track, or if we can squeeze the money into this project, we'll put a pedestrian bridge on the caravan park side, which will be a nice trestle bridge. So looking at it from the caravan park side, DPC, the side of the bridge would be this trestle shape. And you're welcome to choose the colour if you want. It doesn't have to come in black. But I wouldn't advise pink. So key point, where's the bridge going to be? So just a little sketch there of what it is. So the red lines are the property boundaries as per the property database of state cadastre. And you can see that the road and the bridge is wholly within that road reserve at the moment. So because this is a breakaway, either side of the bridge is private land. So it's unlike most other areas on the rivers where there's Crown Land Reserve. This one doesn't have a formal Crown Land Reserve, but the river itself is Crown. So the bridge will be built to the east, and it'll be built from a platform. So the NELMAC process is to build like a pier or a jetty across the river, and it'll just sit lightly on the riverbed. This is much better than all of the other tenderers, and we had 7 other tenderers. They all wanted to dam the river, which we thought was going to cause problems, and even half and half. So we're very happy with the NELMAC solution, which was really to place a jetty, and they work off that, remove the old bridge, put the new bridge in as we go. Sorry, you want to turn your hearing aid on? Sorry. Okay, so the plan is to the piers and the bridge structure is built in situ, in place during the winter period. Then the bridge deck is brought down from Yakandanda, and then they're just craned into place. So within a couple of days, there'll be a bridge installed. So the bridge is pre-built elsewhere and then brought down. The requirements of the bridge are that it needs to meet the 1 in 100 and 1 in 200 year flood levels, which means that the bottom of the new bridge will be about the level of the old bridge. So the bridges are about 1.8 metres deep. So the new bridge top will be about 6 feet above where it is at the moment. So that means that the road is going to need to rise up to the bridge on both sides, which is another reason why we're concerned with having a single lane bridge, because you imagine it's going to be, you won't be able to see the other side of the bridge once you approach it if it's only single lane. So down the bottom you can see some arrows and a black box that represents the new road as it rises up to meet the new bridge. So there's an issue there for us, which we'll talk about in the next stage, which is access to the caravan park. And there's an issue, but there's an issue at the other side, which is the pumping shed that's there. But we intend to avoid those 2 issues. Is there any questions on that while we're on these ones? So the confirmed offer for the DFA, as Andrew said, is a single lane bridge only, no pedestrian access. A set of traffic lights, which is about $1 million worth of costs, which is just bizarre. But our alternative is to just build a 2-lane bridge and to just make it a solid, capable of taking any vehicle. One of our biggest issues that we have in Murrindindi, we've got 350 bridges, and a lot of the road bridges cannot take heavy firefighting vehicles. So we have a really large pool of a really large concern for accessing bridges for heavy vehicles at the moment. And it's our intention just to make it available to heavy vehicles. It doesn't mean that we're encouraging or promoting heavy vehicles to use the road. They can't anyway because the Acheron Bridge restricts their access. It's just that it's there in case Forest Fire Management want to bring a dozer through or something like that. And also, if someone wants to build a house and they want to bring a crane in, at the moment, you would have no opportunity to build a house with a crane. So the option that the council prefers is just a straight 2-lane bridge and eventually to have a pedestrian walkway on the side and to then build infrastructure around that to suit the pedestrians and cyclists and to just have it as a straightforward solid bridge that won't move. In technical terms, the bridge is going to be what we call a super T. It's built with interlocking, the top interlocks with the bottom, and it can't move sideways. So even if it is flooded, then it's not going to move. And once water goes, the bridge will still be there. That's not true with the old bridge, obviously. The Catchment Management Authority have just issued the new flood levels, which we can share around if you're of interest. So the flood level now is 189 metres AHD, which is the datum set. So if you're interested, when the surveyors come in to put the pegs in, we'll be able to give you spot heights as to what that means for the future once we've got those ones in. But 189 is about the top of the old bridge. The old bridge handrails. So there's still quite a few things to decide in terms of what the community can influence us in the design and also just in the surrounds and the actual way that the work happens. So the first one we'll put out to everyone a bit more detail about where we think the alignment is of the new bridge, where the changes in the road will be, whether we need to move any fences, and there'll be just a small amount of that. The road is not on the road reserve the further north we go, but at this point it more or less is. And so the aim is really just to move the bridge from the far left-hand side, the far western side of the road reserve to more closer to the far eastern side of the road reserve and just do that. So there'll be a lot of issues about traffic, about how we manage that. There'll be certainly input in whether we need to manage traffic speeds, whether we want to allow parking on the side of the road for people who want to come and fish, whether we want to put in a little picnic area, bearing in mind that now the bridge is over here, we've got 20 metres of road reserve. I should say that this road is a government road. It's a 1866 gazetted government road. It's a 30-metre road. That's the same width as all the highways. So it was meant to be a major through route to Alexandra. Obviously, that's not the case, but we do have a lot of room to manoeuvre to move. So there's no sort of issue with needing private land. The other part that you can let us know what you feel we need to do with the old bridge. So a lot of the deck is reusable. All of the timber piers are pretty much rotted and gone to God. Virtually none of them reach the riverbed at the moment, and it's supported on the steel. The steel will be recycled, that's underneath there now, but there's an opportunity to have a community use for the timbers that are there, whether we want to give it to the artists for something, or woodworkers, or make something to commemorate the history and the old bridge and the pioneers. They're all options that we feel that the community should be one leading us on these things. I should say that some of the community that have been through the fires, so at Fawcett, they've lost their old timber bridge outside the hall. They've already arranged for the remaining timbers to be turned into furniture for the hall. So they're just going to convert all those old timbers into furniture, which I think is a great idea. The other issue is obviously people who wanted to go fishing there. There's really their only contained access is in the road reserve. Should we be looking at providing some facilities so that it contains the people that want to fish to enter and exit the river from the road reserve near the bridge? We don't have that in our budget, but we've been constantly asked by Victorian Fishing to apply for grants because they don't spend enough money on the Goulburn, so there's an opportunity there. We certainly want to talk about traffic. So the previous traffic level was around 300 odd vehicles a day. We don't expect that to change too much. We certainly want to make sure that there's no hooning or speeding going on. With a new bridge, there might be changes. The school bus turns around at the moment at Akron Road. I don't know, they might change their route and go straight up into Alex from up through Hobans Road. There's all sorts of other opportunities there. What do we want to do with the road? There's certainly options to improve the road reserve. Do you want to make it improve its attractiveness? We do have a new program now where the councillors have agreed with a new strategy on our street trees, and we can certainly put that forward that we'd turn Breakaway into an avenue of trees for selection and sort of beautify the area, and that's just making sure that we get into the program, and we're driven by whatever the community wants. The other issue is caused by the Surveyor General. So while we're doing all this work, we've noticed that they've changed the name of the river. So the Breakaway is now called officially the Goulburn on maps, and the area at the bottom of Hobans Road now is called the Breakaway. So obviously they didn't come through council for that, so I'm not sure who asked for that. So someone in the community, not council, or maybe another agency has asked for that change, because we certainly didn't do it. But it does raise a question about naming of the bridge. We now will name all our bridges. We're going through a process of making sure all the bridges have a name, and that's really for emergency management purposes. They go into the Vic maps, they go on your GPS, they become official names. So that's another area to be considered as well, and also whether we want to have a discussion with the Surveyor General about the Breakaway name. One of the other things that we're doing for those that live in the northern section from Hobans Road to top of Breakaway is the culvert at on the old river course is being upgraded to flood standard. It's actually been damaged. It was damaged severely in 22 flood. It can only take 20 to 30 tonnes if there's only one vehicle on there. So we're going to upgrade that. We need to upgrade it so that the new bridge parts could be delivered. So we'd already planned to upgrade it, but as part of it, and it will be a floodway. So it won't have a barrier. It'll be a bit lower and a bit longer, and it will be a floodway with flood markers. So, but it'll be bomb-proof. We've already built a couple of new ones out up in Stony Creek and a few of the others, and they're designed to withstand any flood. Questions?
Now we're just over to any questions on where we're at, the next steps, those areas which we put up there as topics for discussion. We're looking at loading some of those onto our engagement platform, the web, called The Loop, so people can engage and say, what do they think a name could be? What do you think access could look like to the river? Is it important to have access? Thoughts about the caravan park. So we want to put that up on the Loop to get feedback. But tonight we just want to sound everyone out here. Is there anything else you think is a really good question to put out there to the community, or anything that you think we should have on that space? So it's just any questions in general, or?
I never saw the old bridge, but in regards to putting nature stuff there would be, and I would assume you'd need to be careful that didn't become a tourist attraction and actually stop traffic. Because if you look at other areas in the Shire where you've got big trees and lots of stuff and it's a natural beauty spot, people stop on the side of the road to take photos and stuff for Instagram, and then that causes big traffic problems.
Yep. No, we've all encountered coming around the corner on the way to Marysville and seen someone laying on the road taking photos. So, yep, no, good point, something to be mindful of.
If you're making this a 2-lane bridge with no footpath straight away, my concern is 2-lane bridges, people are going to go faster, even if you take the speed limit down. My concern is when you've got the caravan park people with the kids on their bikes and they're going for a walk across and they fish off that bridge, if you're not building that pedestrian side or footpath at the same time, you are opening ourselves up for a real big safety issue.
Thank you very much. So, as we said, because the bridge didn't have a footpath as part of it, it's not covered through the RFA. So we're having that argument. We're trying to apply logic with the state government and the process. So we're saying why traffic lights, a pedestrian path makes sense. So that is where we're at the moment. So hence we're saying our preference is a footpath on the low side, on the caravan park side, and the bridge will be designed so it can be added or ideally done at the same time. So hear you totally. That's the debate and argument we're pushing at the moment. Should be done at the same time, because it does. Otherwise you are introducing a hazard back into that space. So very, very conscious, and thank you for that. It's a really valid point, and we're all acutely aware of that. Yep.
Yes, I attended a meeting at Akron some years ago when they were talking about repairing this bridge. And one of the arguments put up was to have to raise the level, which you've mentioned tonight, which would impede the access to get into the caravan park. And the argument given then, and I presume you've used the same measurements, catchment management said because of the 1916 flood level, it would have to raise. Well, in 1916, there was no control on the river. There was no Eildon Weir. And since then, we've had a weir. I don't know how many floods have come down it, quite a few, because I used to camp there, so I know how a time the van was flooded. And you're talking about trying to get extra money to build, whether it's the single lane or the double lane, pedestrian crossings or whatever on it. Why don't the crowd, incompetent, that creates these floods every time, when the locals that have lived here for centuries have told them, please let some water out of that weir. You're going to flood us out. No, we know what happens. Flood it out once again. So when is someone going to have enough guts to get hold of these people by the throat and say, listen, that weir now is full. We're coming into September, October, our equinoctial gales. That is when we wind up getting 4 and 5 inches of rain up above the mountain to flood that place out in 24 hours on a full weir. They've got to let it go. There's no need for it to be that full at that time of the year.
Absolutely spot on. And please read our submission to the inquiry to the floods. We said that they should release water. Eildon should function to manage stormwater. Livia presented at that inquiry, and short of holding them by the throat of the neck as you suggested, I don't think Livia went quite that far, but was very blunt. The weir should serve as a flood mitigation activity as well. Very clear, our recommendation to government, our constant ask is use the weir. You know when it's going to rain. You know what water you've got. You know the inflows. Release water earlier to avoid it. So, really valid point. Our submissions constantly to government is, and it needs to be addressed. Everyone blames Gold Murray Water. Gold Murray Water operate in the regulations they're given by the Minister for Water. We've raised it directly with the Minister for Water on multiple occasions, and we've also made submissions to DECA, which have their water policy unit, that they need to change the regulations to allow Gold Murray Water to do that. Really valid point. Totally agree. Cindy McLeish is your local MP, and she knows the Minister for Water. We'll keep jumping up and down about it as well. Thank you so much.
Bev Dick. In regards to the old timbers, what time frame has the community got to decide what to do with the timbers? Will they come down on the day or a month before, and then is the expense of digging those timbers up, carting them away, part of the funding, or does the little community need to find its own funding to do that?
No, it's part of the funding, and we'll take whatever's decided as a good volume, and we'll put it at Alex RRC, and we'll just store it there until it's needed. So up in Mount Pleasant Road, so in the Resource Recovery Centre at Alexandra, so it'll be stored there safely and ready for use, or use it over 10 years or 20 years. So, yeah.
So there's absolutely really great point. There's no urgency. So we'll do some consultation. If it takes the community a while to work up exactly what that looks like going forward and how it's going to be, we can store it at the Resource Recovery Centre in Alexandra. The timber will come. Peter, when would the timber come out? At what stage of the project?
In July, probably. Yep.
Yeah. So looking at taking it in July so we can construct the bridge, but it can be stored for that time. So yep. One here, then. Ladies. I'm not going to debate this.
Hi, I'm V. Scott from Connolly's Creek Road in Akron. Will we be allowed to, as a community, have a celebration around the old bridge? Like we could have a barbecue or a long lunch or something on the old bridge before it gets taken away? Would that be possible?
I'm not quite sure how we're going to get you in the middle of the river on the old bridge and how safe it is. But I think having a community celebration is a great idea. What form it takes, let's explore what that looks like. But I'm not sure how we're going to get everybody safely onto a bridge that's not solid in the middle of the river.
Maybe hold that thought for when the bridge is built and you can have your long lunch then. It also might be in the middle of winter, so the weather might not be so, but I like your thinking.
Well, actually, the new bridge will be there for summer, so you can have it. So you'd have a long lunch on the bridge before it opens to traffic.
Yes, there's so many points come up tonight that I can hardly cope with them. Why would we change the name of the rivers? Breakaway should be the Breakaway, and the new bridge, assuming it happens, should be the Breakaway. We're involved in the fencing. There's no problem with that. They've never been where they should be, so I accept that. A thing that hasn't been brought up that bothers me a little bit is that unless the island that's developed on the bottom side of the bridge is removed, we'll end up with washouts on either the north or the south side of the bridge again in the future. So that I think is overlooked. But if that island is allowed to continue to build as it's building, in spite of everybody saying it wouldn't happen, that's a future disaster, I think.
Thank you very much. So the people didn't hear was about the rock build up in the middle that's creating an island will cause further erosion on the side. Peter, we've engaged with Golden Broken Catchment Management. They're the legally, we can't remove the rocks, we're not allowed to. But so Peter, that's a Golden Broken Catchment Management question. We can go back and say, well, it's building up. What can we do to protect the banks?
Yeah, so that'll be one of the detailed issues will be the protection of the bank around the bridge. So there'll be more extensive protection on both sides. So at the moment there's a rock wall, but there'll be an actual rock embankment up to the underneath the bridges on both sides, and that'll protect part of it. We are working with the Catchment Management Authority on some flood studies, and one of them will allow us to do some modelling, some further modelling. So we've done some work on Wanragaran, and you can see from the radar all of the ancient paths of the river. So that's where the river will move, if it's going to move. So that will inform us and the CMA as to whether any protection is required. So you can see, that the Breakaway was already there, it was already an old channel, it's just been deepened. And the same at Wanragaran, you can see all the old paths. So there certainly will be more work, and we can talk to yourself and the community and sort of work our way through trying to stop the river widening or taking different courses.
So Peter, that's something we can raise again with the Golden Broken about removing those rocks to take the pressure off the banks.
Yeah, they're saying it's not going to impact any floods, but I think we need to prove that out with a bit more study.
Oh, yeah, and unfortunately, we get caught in the fact that the Golden Broken Catchment Management Authority manages the banks and the bed. So for us, that's an advocacy issue. Show us how it's not going to cause impact. Yep. Yeah, and well, as we said earlier, logic doesn't always come into when you're dealing with government departments. So as Peter said, we'll do in the flood modelling, we'll push that issue and ask the question, if the rocks are removed in the middle, does that take the pressure off the banks in that area? So here, very clear, we can raise it again. We have raised it in the past.
And the question around the naming, given that it was a surprise to all of us that the name was changed, and I understand that the process should include community consultation, I guess there's nothing stopping the community putting forward other names, propositions, and see how that goes ahead.
Yeah, it's been.
I think the issue is that the old path of the Goulburn needs to be named so that we can say that it's, because that's no longer the Goulburn River. So that's
the state have already changed it.
Unfortunately, you can't use old, new, west, east, north, south, any of those things anymore. They're banned. So.
Bev Dick again. Two questions about the bridge. One is the railings. Are they made of concrete? I'm I'm thinking the old railings looked charming, and maybe is there some way of getting charm into this quite frankly, ugly bridge. I accept that we need it, but just asking what are the railings made of? Is it plastic? Is it steel? Is it concrete? Is there any, you said we could choose the colour, but what is it made of? And is there a capacity to make it look a little like the old design, that old whatever design? And I'm only raising this because it's difficult to have a conversation with our community because we have a CFA and a hall committee, but we don't have a progress association. So we don't really have a mechanism to get together and talk about this. And I'm a bit worried that if we just send in individual ideas through the portal you suggested, Andrew, then we're not really having conversations about what other people's ideas are. So I'm just raising that one. The other thing is, if, we could find, there's some beautiful artwork that could be, considered, beautiful artwork, not cheesy murals, but beautiful artwork that would disguise the concrete. That work would have to be done, ideally not from a boat, but done before the concrete goes in. So, if we thought that was an idea and there could be funding and an appropriate artist, beautiful environmental scenes, could be really something. Anyway, I'm throwing that to the room and to the funding bodies.
Thank you.
The barriers.
Yep, we can have a look.
The barriers are steel, so we can talk to our designers about that. And
Thank you. Oh,
the
sorry.
barriers are steel, and we can colour them. So, yep.
Thank you. No disrespect to discussions of colours and names and artwork, but I don't think they're as relevant as some of the more major issues here. Jeff, I'd just like to second you absolutely 100% your concern with the build-up in the middle of the river. I don't think people in this room have quite the comprehension of the potential of that island that's forming. It doesn't just consist of native vegetation, which some of our authorities would like to believe. It does consist of willow. Jeff and I have been around long enough to know how quick that grows. You talk about a 30-metre span structure. That island will build and consume a fair chunk of that span in no time if it's not dealt with. So, yeah, it is a major issue in terms of the life of this bridge. My other point I'd like to raise as a concern, you talk about the traffic calming and so on Breakaway Road. I don't know how far you're thinking of extending this as a traffic issue, but to my way of thinking, it has to be considered all the way out to Akron Road, so Breakaway Road, Akron Road, out to the highway. My question, I guess, is what do you consider for the intersection at Breakaway Road and Akron Road? I've lived there for 23 years. In the 19 years prior to the flood, there were at least 4 motor vehicle accidents at that intersection. Since then, there's been nothing. Predominantly, to my way of thinking, the majority of traffic that uses it is local traffic. They know the layout of the road, they know how to drive it safely, etc. Once you open that up to through traffic that is not particularly familiar with the area, I can't see that that's a safe intersection. There's at least 250, 350 metres of single lane. Akron is quite well renowned for fog, and I don't quite see how you're going to manage that safely at this stage, but please at least consider it all the way to the highway, and at the highway it's just as bad. So, thank you.
Thank you, Peter. So the traffic calming, how far, Peter, were you looking? We're open-minded, but what can occur along that whole section?
Yeah, 100% open-minded as to what you want. I think this is an opportunity. There's a focus on works here for Akron, so our aim is not to just dump the bridge just there by itself, but to actually look at the holistic issues. What do we need to do? We've got other areas that will flood, we need to protect the road a bit. But so there are things to do that we can do now, things we'll do in the next 3 years. Things like fog lines on the roads, so that people can see where the centre line is. That's a luminescent paint that goes on the centre line. You'll see it up in Kinglake. We used it in Kinglake. They're the ideas. Relining the road so it's safer. All those things are in play. Yep.
The island, it's 20 plus years ago, we removed an island slightly downstream of where the current one is. We had permission from Goulburn Broken Catchment to do it. The waterways engineer at the time, Tom O'Dwyer, who was still there, was dead set against it, but his boss approved it. That's going to be a huge challenge. He's not going to be happy about that being removed a second time, although it needs it, and it's quite obvious. If we hadn't have done that, many years ago, the banks on both sides would have eroded far, far more. But yeah, it's definitely it improved things dramatically. And the only reason it's back is because of the flood event. But yeah, we did that. So there is a precedence. We paid for that ourselves. Goulburn Broken Catchment wouldn't spend a cent of their own. But yes, that cost us a significant amount of money to do that 20 plus years ago. But it certainly improved things. Second thing is raising the bridge. I think you said 6 feet. What are your thoughts on access to the caravan park? I can't see how you can. The front entrance is going to need to be moved.
Yeah, so we've allowed for moving the front entrance if we need to. So we're just waiting on the actual detail design, but it will be, the ramp will be pretty much adjacent to the existing entrance, that's for sure. Whether we, so turning right off the bridge into the caravan park will be difficult. So we need to fix that. We need to make sure that movement is catered for, especially if you've got a long vehicle, if you've got a caravan, if you're coming from Alex.
And who is incurring whatever costs need to be done to the caravan park?
It's in the project budget, yeah. So if we have to move the gate, we'll move it.
It's not going to be a matter of just moving it. There's a lot of infrastructure that will need to be moved.
Or we'll build a turning area further down the road. So we'll come up with a solution then.
Yep. So now that we're getting close with the flood levels being set, we know where they're at. We know how long the ramp is, and then we can now do the design. That's a conversation. Is it a turning circle or is it possible? So that's the next stage.
To consult with that.
Yeah, no, and all the impacted people. So that's why today we've got the people from directly that area here tonight, and then we're going out to broader consultation. But the people where we're going close to the boundary, the people with the pump, all those issues, we're going to meet with them to resolve it through each of the issues. And the caravan park is a key one of those as well, because how you get access is going to be important, but also how you get access that's safe.
The chap just mentioned earlier about if the bridge went in, the access to traffic going through. We've just been through a decent bushfire. Fortunately, both fronts never joined. There was a few houses lost on Holborn Road end of it. What would have happened if the Warragaran side had kept coming through, which it normally does from that area? Both people on both sides of the river are completely trapped. There was no access given. That road joins not only two major highways together, it also joins the main street of Alexandra. They need decent access to that area in either direction at all time. And as for doing brickwork, stones along the banks, the only thing that really holds the banks, and our forefathers put it in that river years ago, was willows. Now, they're pulling the willows out and planting our natives. Sure, that's fine. But unfortunately, the roots of our willows and gum trees do not hold the banks. It is that fine fibre root from the willow in the water that stops bank erosion. Now, a few years ago, they had a mad thing on removing willows. The catchment manager pulled different ones out here, there and everywhere, put in rock groins. The current hit those groins and then changed its level to hit the bank on the other side and gouge the banks out. What used to be some decent holes in the river are now just full of mud with weeds growing out of it. I don't know how many native platypus and what have you may have been destroyed while they pull those willows out and then fill it up with rock and that. Unfortunately, they're in there in the daylight, so you wouldn't know. Right? Needs a better look at.
And I think when the councillors considered the report at the council meeting from the tender, that was something that the councillors all spoke to about that, the importance of that as a connector road for emergency access. So that was a really clear message. We hear you about the need for vegetation. There'll be very differing views around willows versus natives in the community. So we can work that through with but we won't be getting willows planted back under the Catchment Management Authority on the banks. Any other questions? I'm not sure I'm brave to do this, Mike, but you've been incredibly quiet tonight. It's out of character. But thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mike. So thank you everyone for taking your time to come along. We will be putting some consultation stuff up on the loop. You can also drop pins and put comments. We'll look at how we can engage around what artwork looks like and what. And Mike's cooking. Thank you very much for coming along. Have a great night. Stay warm and drive home safe, please.